Welcome to the One Hand at a Time podcast. I'm your host, Chris Welton, and I've got a guest today that I've been following on social media for a long time. And this is proof that if you DM somebody and they respond, you have an opportunity to connect. I text or DM John early this week, and we jumped on a podcast already by Friday. So John Cerasani, welcome to the One Hand at a Time podcast.
I'm happy to be here, Chris. I got to tell you, man, and you did what other podcast hosts are not too flexible to do. And hey, sometimes people don't want to click through the Calendly link to find a spot. Okay. Hey, So I just replied, yeah, okay, dude, I could do tomorrow from between 3 and 5 if that works. And you weren't like, well, could you check my Calendly? Like, this is the way to do it, brother. Jesus, you know?
Well, I appreciate that. Yeah. So I hopped on there. I'm like, yep. Usually I don't work Friday afternoon, so it worked out perfectly. Awesome. I usually just record episodes and do some stuff to get prepped for the next week. So that's awesome. I want to,
Can I tell you something, Chris? I didn't share this with you. You know, when I get asked to do podcasts, I try to do a little bit of research on the show itself. And for people that don't know it, it's very difficult to have a real gauge on the popularity of somebody's podcast. Okay.
Yep.
There's certain rankings and shit, but a lot of that stuff could be really like maneuvered. Even the YouTube stuff, like it's very, it's like Instagram. There's people could fake things out on it. And I clicked through yours, Chris, and I wasn't familiar with you, and I didn't know what the title of your podcast was. And I do a lot of gambling content as well as the business content. Yep. And I thought it was maybe about gambling. And then I go to your site and it's like, okay, he's talking literally one hand at a time. And what I was impressed with, Chris, was in our exchanges, you were saying all these reasons for me to be on your show. You never once brought that up as like a disability or anything of you. You never played that card. And I think that's so awesome when somebody finds something out about somebody that's maybe admirable or maybe in this case, it's adversity that they've overcome, and you find out about it yourself without them putting it in your face. I think that's so cool. Yeah.
Well, thanks.
You just run that risk that they'll never find out. I'm like, all right, it's like that hype man at the bar. All right, I'm gonna tell these girls like, hey, I'm your bodyguard, but when I go to the bathroom, tell them I'm like this multimillionaire, and then I come back out. No, they still think you're my bodyguard. Okay, thanks, buddy.
I love it. That's so good. Obviously, a lot of what you talk about on social media is how you exited the W-2 world and then started your own business and then cashed in by selling it. Like, I think that's the American dream. I think that people always talk about wanting to get wealthy and do things, but they're not taking the action to do it. They don't have enough faith in themselves.
That's right.
I believe that a lot of probably the confidence you got came from playing Division I football at a high level. And then I'm just curious, were you able to take that confidence and then put that into the workforce and just like go after it? I mean, how did that whole transition happen for you?
I wonder, man. I've wondered that myself. Is the chicken or the egg? Where did the confidence actually come from? And I've spent some time in LA over the last few years, and I find out that I'm a Sag. I'm a Sagittarius, and LA people like to talk about zodiac signs a lot. And I guess I really fit the mold of what a Sagittarius would be, with kind of that alpha-like approach, I guess. But you know what, man, when I grew up, I was a foot taller than everybody. I was always like the big kid. I'm 6'5" now, but like growing up, and you look at my like kindergarten pictures and first grade pictures and second grade, all the way up really till about fourth or fifth grade, I was a good head taller than everyone. So I think just life kind of conditioned me to be like all eyes on me a little bit. I've kind of filled those shoes, I think.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, look, we were talking before we started recording here, and I said one of the main reasons I wanted to reach out to you is because I just think that you're genuine and you don't pull any punches. You speak the way you feel about something. If someone doesn't like it, that's just the way it works. That's just how it works. And when we talk about 2,000% raise, obviously that's what really is what happened with your life. I mean, you went from the W-2 to having your company, then selling it.
Yep.
What does that look like now for you? Like, I mean, like I see this, we see the fun the gambling and in the big suites and,
Yeah.
you know, hanging out with Jason Kelsey and those guys and playing poker, which obviously you know how to play blackjack. You're very successful at that.
Yep.
But what else is going on behind the scenes? Like, what are the moving parts? Like, I'm sure, aren't you looking at investing other things, building other companies? Because I know a lot of people just don't, like, I can't imagine you cashed out and you're like, okay, I'm good.
Yeah. No, so I sold my company in 2015, and then I had to do an employment contract at the company that bought mine for a few years. So I wasn't really done until December of 2019. I started Glencrest Global shortly thereafter, which is an early stage venture capital company, and it's really just my own money. I don't collect other investors' money or anything like that. But I got into some pretty high-profile deals over the next year and a half when I started that. And when I say high-profile, I'm talking about with high-profile founders. Like I'm with a company that Aaron Rodgers is the founder of. I was in a cannabis business with Jaleel White. I'm in a gambling thing with Kevin Garnett. There's just some cool things that I'm involved in. Whether or not they ever make me any money is to be determined. It's
Sure.
a long runway on this stuff. But I do have a couple that I'm in that, you know, I'm an early investor in a company called Discord, if you know what Discord is, the coaching platform. So I am in things like that, Chris, but the issue becomes you only bring so much to the table. Okay. There's only so much for me to do. I'm not operating these companies. And I got to tell you, as I sit back here and look at it, it's like, oh my God, dude. Like the way I built a company and sold it's very different than the way a lot of these founders approach it. You know, they're raising outside capital and you spending other people's money, and they're able to sleep at night. Dude, how are you able to sleep at night, bro? You just took other people's money, bro. Like, come on, man. I don't quite understand it. So I still do all of that. I'm in about 30 different deals. Some of them are extremely exciting deals. But you know, some of them are frickin', you know, swings and misses. You know, I got to tell you, man, if knowing what I know now, if I would have went back about 3 years ago, I'd probably be in about half of the deals that I'm actually in. And who knows, you know, knock on wood, maybe something comes out of the clear blue sky. But about a year and a half ago, I decided I'm going to start putting out some content on social media, and it was really more to promote my book. I rewrote a book. I call it 2000% Raise.
Yep.
And I built a podcast around that book, and then I started just enhancing my social media presence. And what happened, Chris, was the social media presence, I think, was supposed to be, you know, secondary. It became bigger than the podcast and the book itself, and really, quite frankly, it's my bigger priority too now. I still promote my book, I still promote my podcast, and they're awesome. It's an asset that's out there, but the social media is really my big thing. So what you're seeing on there is actually work, man. It is my lifestyle. It is what I'm doing, but I kind of lean into it a little bit more on social media. You know, I wasn't doing anything with the gambling stuff until about 6 months ago. And then I realized how much people loved it. And that's really when my page started growing a lot, because now I had this whole additional element. Here's this actual businessman that isn't full of crap. Oh, wait, he's not just some degenerate lying to us. He's actually gambling real money in blackjack, and he's showing us how he wins. You know, and one of the first things people ask, did you get rich from gambling? No, I didn't get rich from gambling. But I win when I gamble. Here's how, and here's how you should go about it. You know what I mean? So I think people appreciate, you know, the big picture. And of course, Chris, I have to sprinkle in, you know, the fun stuff too, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I mean that creates some of the buzz.
Mm-hmm.
But I think you're saying what a lot of people want to say. Like, I mean, you would be amazed the comments that people say on my TikTok and stuff, like derogatory comments about my arm and just crazy stuff. And every now and then I'll fire back. Like I had a guy the other day said something about my arm. I said, well, that's not what your mom said about my arm this morning. Like, I mean, I have no issues coming back with it.
Yeah.
But it's true, man. I mean, everybody gets keyboard courage, right? They're in their mom's basement eating Cheetos in their underwear, and they're typing, you know, hey, you know, watch this. And it's like, man, I grew up in an era with no social media. I'm not sure how old you are, John, but I'm 51. So when you said stuff like that, when I was a kid, we handled it. You know what I
Bro,
mean? Like it wasn't, you just didn't do that, right?
yeah. Well, here's how I handle it, man. I had one I just posted. I don't know, when is this going to air? In a couple weeks, probably, or when are you going to post this?
Yeah, a couple weeks. Yep.
Yeah. Well, if you scroll back on my Instagram to 2 weeks ago, whenever you're listening to this right now, I just posted it this morning. This guy, dude, he comments die. He told me to die. And I go and click on his profile. And it's kind of a funny picture of him and his wife in a cornfield. And he said he's a creative director at Accenture. And so I made this funny reel about, how as a W-2 employee, you think you're going to have all this shit. And then you see a guy like me that's not maybe very articulate, that's doing whatever he wants in life. And you got a problem with it. And you shouldn't, though, because your problem should be what society conditioned you for. Okay, society has conditioned you. If you do this, go to school this way, do that. You're an academic. You're working at big companies like Accenture. You should grow that way. And, that's really the message. Or I try to do a strong message when I post these kind of, I call it trolling the trolls, when I troll the trolls. And then I add in a little bit like, when you're not busy getting corn cobs stuck up your ass by your wife, stuff like that folds in for comedic value. And I got to tell you, Chris, it's always half my followers don't like it. They're like, "You're above this, John. Lion shouldn't be talking to the sheep," or whatever the hell they say. And I'll tell you what, man, I'll do a poll on my story. I'll put my Instagram story out there, and I'll actually poll the audience. And it's always so close. It's like 56% are like, "Yeah, keep doing it," and I'm 44% are like, "No, it's cringy." You know what I mean? So I try to mix it up a little bit.
Yeah, but I think that's look again. People are conditioned, like you said, to do certain things, and they're going to have what someone else told them would be a great life.
Right. Yeah.
That's not my great life. I don't think of my life that way. Like I have bigger things that I'm trying to do. And I owned several companies before and then got back in the W-2 space about, I don't know, 10 years ago, approximately.
Okay.
And then got back out. So I realized so many things. The first was I was tired of making other people rich.
Yep.
And then I was tired of putting out fires for other people. Like now it's my company. I do my thing and whatever happens, happens. I'm the one responsible for that in the end. But I think that the reason you're such a great gambler is because you gambled in the business strategies all along too. You bet on yourself, right? Like to have a company that you can sell and cash for 8 figures or whatever that number was.
Yep.
I mean, you gambled and bet on yourself, right? And then, that's what most people are afraid, right? I mean, most people are afraid to gamble on themselves.
Well, they really are. And for me, it was a calculated risk. I call it my paid training. So I worked in corporate America, got paid by somebody else to teach me this industry. When you watch Shark Tank, you hear Mark Cuban and Damon and Lori Greiner and Barbara and everybody sitting there talking about, hey, it's okay to live out of the back seat of your car eating ramen noodles and, okay, you failed. It's all right. Well, it shouldn't be your plan to fail. You shouldn't jump into entrepreneurship with the plan to fail because, Mark Cuban is going to tell you, hey, you're going to learn a lot from this. F that, dude. All right, there's nothing glamorous about losing your grandma's inheritance money or any, you know what I mean? Like, hello. So I talk about paid training, working in an industry, getting paid handsomely for it, learning the trade, learning what you don't know right now. Okay, and that's the key. You don't even know what you don't know. I had this kid today come up to me. I'm getting at the point, Chris, where it's kind of a feather in my cap, and this is going to sound super, I don't know, super arrogant, I guess, but maybe it won't. I'm getting to the point where every time I leave my house now, Chris, because of my social media, I get recognized, and I go to this gym a couple towns over, and about 5 or 6 complete strangers came up to me at the gym today, and it was kind of like, all right, this is really starting to spread. People are really vibing with this message, dude. And this kid was talking to me about how he's worked for a year and a half going door to door selling solar. He goes, yeah, but I want to do something more. I want to do something bigger as I get older. And tell me what he's making. I go, dude, it's a pretty good job, bro. I go, but bigger than the money you're making right now? You're learning how to sell. You're literally going up to people's doors, trying to sell them a very expensive product. Now, I'm particularly am not a fan of the solar industry because I think there's some shady elements. It's almost kind of like car salesman a little bit, but that's to each their own. That's okay. I go, but bigger than that, dude. You are learning to overcome objections. You're learning to have like resilience. I mean, this is a tough job, and and like I said, I call that paid training.
Yeah, you talk about cars. My first job ever, like real job, I was selling cars at 19 years old.
Okay.
And I learned how to sell. Like, and I've learned how to sell my whole life. It's gotten me great opportunities in just corporate jobs. Yeah. But now with what I do is I teach entrepreneurs how to sell and how to strategic ways to grow their businesses. And along with I've got some other people too that are high up in companies that come to me for sales training for their salespeople. But I wouldn't have been able to do that if I hadn't experienced. I'm a sales trainer. Well, how many years of experience do you have? Well, a little bit. No, I have like 30 years of grinding, selling stuff to make my bills, right?
Right.
There's no better training in the world, I think, than selling cars or going door to door. Like to learn how to sell, it's a grind. And if you can sell, you can write your own check. You just have to understand what to do it.
Yeah, that's one of the things I really kind of preach to people. It's like, hey, listen, if you got the ability to bring in revenue, you could be an entrepreneur. A lot of the rest of it, you could kind of figure out. Whereas adversely, hey, if you're in like an account executive or customer service type of role and you think you know a lot at your organization, these dumbass sales reps, I could go out and be smarter than them. Yeah, but you got to solve for the ability to bring in clients. You got to get that question answered, and preferably if it's you doing it as the owner too. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, it's the sales aspect and understanding how to handle objection and talk to people. Like when I talk to some clients, I'm like, I'm not any better on the phone than you. Like I just happen to have made 30,000 more calls in my career than you have.
Yeah.
Like, reps. I mean, it's just reps.
Yeah.
It's just reps. Yeah. It's like when the first time you tried to catch a football, how did that go for you?
Yeah, exactly. You're scared of it. Moving backwards. Exactly.
Yeah. So it's the same thing with sales jobs. And I think that so many people miss that. You're right. You're conditioned to get the job, get the house, do this, live on the 401k. And that's okay. Look, if that's what they want, that's great.
Yeah. But
I want to create generational wealth. Like I have two daughters that are very successful. One's 31 and one's 24. Yeah. Very successful. One's an entrepreneur, one's in finance. And they've learned from me along the way how important sales is.
That's awesome. I mean, that's awesome. Well, and I'll tell you what, I had a comment on my Instagram this morning where somebody I don't get these that much anymore. It must have been somebody new to my page, said, hey man, love your message, but there's plenty of W-2 people making $250,000 to $500,000 that are perfectly happy making that income. You shouldn't be shitting on them. And not everybody has the wherewithal to be a business owner. And I said, time out. I've never shit on a W-2 employee. I'm not. All I'm trying to do is remove this layer of bullshit that corporate America puts out there that they don't want you to see as an employee. Now, once that layer is removed and you understand what's actually going on and you choose to be a W-2 employee, that's fine. I'm not going to fault you for that. But understand that this layer of corporate bureaucracy and corporate really BS and brainwashing, if you will, exists. And then furthermore, I said to him, I go, listen, man, got news for you. If you got the ability to make $300,000 working for someone else, you probably do have the skill sets to be a business owner. Just FYI, you probably do.
You're probably high enough where you're up on the chain. You're running the company anyways.
Exactly.
So what could you do? To do that on your own?
Precisely.
Look, just the freedom you get from not being held back by someone else. And I worked in some corporate jobs over the years where I felt that the owners were almost intimidated by me. I was on just another level trajectory with growth, and they try to hold you back because they don't want you to leave. Right. Last thing I want to do is lose number one. Right. So, I think that happens a lot in W-2 jobs.
I've had, I had a woman on my podcast, that her name is Nicole Valance. She's into she's Christian and kind of faith-based leadership kind of thing that she does. But she made a good point to me. She goes, the days of that employee staying with your organization for 30 years are over. So you better just get the best out of them you can when you have them. And I go, shoot, because when I had my company, Chris, it was more like what you just described. I was like, I'm going to hire people that aren't really like, that big of go-getters. I'm going to hire good account executives that aren't going to be revenue driven, maybe some like lead generators, but I'm going to do the selling because I don't want to bring someone in just to have them be here for 2 years and leave. You know what I mean? Yeah. And maybe that's my fault. You know what I mean? I did not have a complex organization. I had a very cash rich organization that I sold for a lot of money, but it wasn't a complex organization at all. It was pretty flat with me above, and that was by design. And maybe I missed the boat on that. Who knows?
How is the company still in existence now?
No, well, it is, but it's part of a much larger organization. Okay. So it's part of what we call a private equity roll up, where a bigger competitor buys a bunch of us little ones and kind of just rolls us into them. Yeah. So
I just see a lot of times when you see the buyouts and the key people end up leaving.
Oh yeah.
I have a good friend of mine that owned a very large insurance risk management company and got a big buyout in the early 2000s, which would have back then, $9 million or $10 million buyout was a big number in like 2001 or 2002.
Right.
And then he did like 3 years. He had to stay on. And then I think he bought the company back maybe 18 months later for a tenth of what he sold it for. Because they couldn't do it.
Yeah, well, here's why. That's the same kind of business I was in, but I was on the employee benefits side. It was insurance. He was probably in brokerage. It was the exact same thing, just different side of the house. And the problem is that these companies doing the purchasing don't understand a lot of time. Now they do, but back then they probably didn't. They don't understand how hard it is to institutionalize business. So for me, I had to do a 5-year employment contract, man. I had to do a 5, and it got more and more painful every month into that damn thing I was, because they were pulling things away from me to make me less and less relevant. Now, the problem the company that bought me had was they grew too quick, where, okay, shit, John's getting to the end of his employment contract. Too many of these clients are still calling me directly. Now, luckily for them, I'm not like some kind of scumbag that's going to go steal all their clients when they just bought them all from me. You know what I mean? I could have, for sure. I would have got sued. but my point is not that. My point is that it wasn't really institutionalized. They didn't ever really make it theirs. It was still John's business, you know what I mean? And it's hard to do, man. In these relationship driven businesses like insurance, it's difficult to get to that point.
Yeah, I mean, I see that a lot of times they're buying the numbers and not the people, right? Like they don't understand the culture behind what got them there. The numbers look great, so we can do this with the processes, but you're still not the same people. You know what I mean? Like you had a culture that people worked for and wanted to thrive in your culture the way it was run.
Yep.
It's hard to replace a culture. I don't care how much money you throw at it.
Exactly, dude. And all these types of professions, especially I call it white collar service professions. So accounting, consulting, wealth management, financial advising, insurance brokerage, things along those lines, dude. The human is the product. You're literally brokering other people's stuff, dude. Okay. Ooh, you work at Deloitte? Big deal, dude. I work with Joe Smith and his team at Deloitte. You work with Joe Smith and his team. The Deloitte piece happens to be on their business card.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. If Joe Smith left tomorrow to go to Brown & Brown or whoever,
yeah, exactly,
they're all going with him. Like, just be honest, what's going to happen?
Exactly. With the exception of like United Airlines or Nike or something, because they're going to need the many different capabilities and the 2,000 offices internationally and all that crap. But I always would make the joke. I worked at this company called Arthur J. Gallagher. And I mean, let's just say, for example, they had 20,000 employees and 200 offices. I think they're bigger than that now. And I'd always be like, well, we'd go out there and say, we've been in business for 100 plus years. I was 26 years old, Chris. I go, I've only been here for 3 years, but we've been around for 100 years, and the other 19,998 employees aren't going to do shit on your account. I'm pretty much doing everything, so I don't really know exactly why this is in our PowerPoint presentation, but hey, client, hire us because of this bullshit, you know?
Yeah, because it worked one time.
Yeah,
That's why it's in the PowerPoint.
yeah. I mean, I think some clients want to hear that shit, and it's the brainwash of not just the clients; it's the brainwash of the employees themselves. When you're at an organization like that, they want you as the employee to believe that is the case. Otherwise, people are just going to get paid training at a company like Gallagher and shift out and leave like I did. Everyone's going to do that, you know.
Yeah, I mean, it's. You're exactly right. When you look at like I was in the mortgage space for a long time too, and you look at mortgage companies like, oh well, we're going to sell the company. I'm like, what's the value? Like, unless you have a big servicing portfolio, there's no value to your company. Like,
No.
what's all your desks worth? Because that's your value. Like, nobody's going to stay when you sell to somebody else. They're just not going to stay. So, what do you think you can sell something for?
Yeah, because mortgage. I mean, there's no. At least with insurance, it's residual. Like the accounts would have to actually fire you and sign over a new policy with someone else, which takes a little bit of effort. Whereas mortgages, it's like,
I mean, unless you have a servicing portfolio, right? Which most of the big companies or only the big boys do.
Yeah.
If you're just a regular mortgage company, you're selling that servicing rights off and getting a service release premium.
That's right.
What are you selling to?
Yep.
There's nothing to like. Do you have some real estate that the building's in? Like, I don't know what to tell
exactly.
you. Like,
what exactly are we buying?
Yeah. So it's funny because it really breaks it down. It makes people understand that it's the people you get.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the product. It's the people. Like, I was a firm believer I could take anybody that I trained and built out to any car dealership in the country. And I did this for a while. I would travel to car dealerships all over the country and help them revamp their systems. I would bring in a whole crew of people with me, and I didn't care where it was. It could be in Iowa, it could be in Southern California. We'd come in, and with the right people, you could turn a place around.
Yep.
And I mean, I think that's that way. I mean, you feel that's the same way in the insurance industry?
Yeah. So I think with not really, because car dealerships, I think, are probably driven to a degree, at least, by the geography or where their location is. I would imagine, right? Like, I mean,
I think you put good people in just any store, you can figure out a way to make it profitable. Like, I mean, that's my experience for sure.
Well, I think especially now with the internet, right? But I think maybe back in the day, I don't know. Insurance, I think. Yeah, if you get good people, the problem with insurance is if there's no foundation for your like brokerage shop, it's like you got really nothing to build around. It's so independent. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
There needs to be some kind of core at least to build around. And a lot of times, unfortunately, it's the owner. You know what I mean? And the owner is looking to sail into retirement, and he's 60 years old, and his 2 kids don't want to be in the industry or they're not cut out for it. So you got 12 other agents there that you're looking around. Now they got one foot out the door because they know the old man's retiring. What do we do? You know what I mean? It's those situations that. If a guy like you comes in and puts some vigor back into the organization, I think it could turn around. But a lot of times it's like, just sail into the sunset and die. You know what I mean?
No, I get it for sure. Yeah. So let's talk about the social media. What's the plan? I mean, you're on fire. Your account's blowing up. I want to say since I started following you, you've probably increased 200,000 followers. So I give you an idea how long I've been following you along. What's the plan? Like, what are you trying to do with social media?
Well, we'll see if it keeps growing as it has been. I think the Instagram algorithm over the last month has really decided that it enjoys me, apparently, because I've had like drastic growth here. I'll tell you what, man, last June, so a little under a year ago, I decided that, hey, dude, it's pretty easy to hit the like button. It's pretty easy to comment. It's pretty easy for me to feel important with all these views and stuff. But maybe I'm going to try to get people together in person, and let's see if anybody shows up. And I did this thing at the Trump Tower in Chicago. I was expecting maybe a couple, maybe a dozen people show up. I'll just do this little brunch and blah, blah, blah. I ended up getting 70 people there, man. And people flew in from different parts of the country and just had a really, really good time. And a lot of these people were people that do things like this. They're regulars at like these kinds of conferences. They saw I promoted it, and I go, hey, this is my first time doing this, guys. But they were more than happy to be there, and from there, there started to be like kind of this demand. Hey, dude, you got to do a follow up to this. You got to do something else. So, all right, let's do Vegas. People showed up to that. Holy shit! And about 90 people to that. And now I've done stuff in Tampa, Philadelphia. I just did one in New York City recently. Did a couple in the suburbs of Chicago, in Burr Ridge and Schaumburg. And people are showing up, and it's selling out every time, man. So I think people appreciate that I'm genuine. I think people appreciate that there's not some like catch. Like at the end, I always kind of laugh when I go, oh, this is your first time at the event, which a lot of you it is usually. Just so you know, at the end of the event, you will have to sit down with me to buy a timeshare, okay? And people know me well enough to start laughing, but I think in the back of people's minds, they are waiting to see if there is some kind of gotcha. And Chris, I'm blessed because I'm in a position where I made enough money on that insurance deal where, bro, if I wanted to make more money, dude, I'll just go back into insurance and do this shit again. I know I'm good at it. All this other crap, dude, it's like whether I lose $500 on a dinner or make $2,500 on a given weekend, it's not really going to matter for me. Yeah. So I'd rather just let's make these events where everyone's walking away with, holy shit, that was great.
Sure.
So my 2024 is trying to really build that brand, Chris. And, we got one in Newport Beach. We just had New York the other night at Tao in Uptown Manhattan. We have one in Mastro's Ocean Club in Newport Beach in March. And probably after I get off the phone with you here today, I'm gonna kind of dive into what I want my next bigger event to be. And I'm thinking a Chicago-based one. Probably in May or June, a 2 or 3 day thing, and really make it something, man. Because people are really gravitating towards the realness of the message. Yep. And you got to listen to me for 2 minutes at this thing and realize, okay, this is not rehearsed. This guy's speaking from his heart. It's pretty obvious.
I think it's a great idea. I mean, I'm really big into going to masterminds and just or getting around like-minded people. There's a shortage of that. Yeah. And it used to be the case where to grow, you needed to have a mentor, and they had to be close. You had to know them. You don't need that anymore. Like, you can find mentors online by watching, listening, and then paying your way to get into certain things. Like, that's just how it works. If you really want to go to that next level. So I applaud you for that.
Thanks, man. Yeah, no, I'm really enjoying it. And, I guess in the back of my head at some point, I hope it leads to some kind of opportunity. I don't know, business related or just personally related, but I'm having a heck of a lot of fun with it right now. And I got to tell you, man, these guys out there, man, and maybe you've been in this category too, where people are trying to do stuff like this to pay the bills. Getting off your feet to get this thing started, bro, is like, I don't think my shit would be flying right now if I was trying to monetize this thing early, man. I think not monetizing it's what got me to where I'm at.
Yeah, like I have an online summit that I'm doing in June called Strength Through Adversity. I've got 20 pretty notable speakers who've agreed to talk for 10 minutes. That's it, 10 to 12 minutes. Okay. And I'm writing the check myself to fund it all. Yeah, I'm going to try to get some sponsors and stuff when it all goes down. Yep. But ultimately, I'm trying to create that event, right? And that's going to happen in June. And I've invested a lot of money into myself right now. I'm not afraid to do it. I saved my money when business was good. I've got the cash. I have the reserves. I'm not looking at my P&L generating for my business right now. Okay. I'm just literally spending the money in the right spots, making the right connections, getting into the right rooms with the right people. Yep. And it's working out. I mean, that's how I met Flex Lewis. Like we were this small little mastermind down in Miami, and I hung out with Flex for 2.5 days, and we've become friends. So it's been great. Awesome. And here's the thing about that. When you get when you have people like that I can text now, that I have friends like Clinton Sparks is a good friend of mine. I met them through events, but then it gives me the courage to DM a John Cerasani, right? And say, hey, you want to be on my podcast? Like, no bullshit, like no, like whatever. if I hadn't done the other things, I wouldn't have had the courage to reach out to somebody who I watch on social media. So there's a lot to be said about that, right? I mean,
that's good.
Putting yourself in uncomfortable situations to grow.
How's Clinton doing? I haven't talked to him in a while.
He's doing great. I actually wrote a book that's coming out on the 27th called One Jordan.
Okay.
And it's a story about where I took one Jordan shoe and I sent it to certain people with a handwritten note that said, if you want the other shoe, give me a call.
Nice.
And I was able to meet people through that. That's how I met Clinton.
Oh, wow.
Met Clinton, David Meltzer, Ben Newman. I mean, these are all guys that I've been able to build relationships with. Right. So Clinton's doing great. We talk, I just talked to him on Sunday. He's doing really well.
Clinton's funny, man. I had, because like if you understand like what his background is and what he does, it's interesting. And some people might not know the name and don't know anything about him, but the people that do know who he is, oh shit! Because I had him on my podcast, I started getting DMs. Dude, you had Clinton Sparks on, and it wasn't even like a great podcast where I had like big numbers or anything, but the people that knew fucking knew, and it gave me some street credit. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, you say it to people, they're like, I don't know who that is. I'm like, okay, well, here's a list of the songs that you sing at every sporting event.
Exactly.
He was part of that. Like, I mean, but just one of the most genuine, down-to-earth guys ever. And I think you live some of the principles he talks about, which is a life by design. Yeah. Right? Like, you're living a life by design, dude. And I applaud you for that. And I love the fact that you're no nonsense, no bullshit kind of guy. And you're doing it your own fucking way, dude. Like
thanks, man.
That's what it's about, man.
Yeah, man. I'm enjoying it. Thanks.
That's what it's about. Yeah. But man, I want to thank you for coming on, dude. It's been my pleasure to have you on the show. And we'll talk here when we hop off, but it's been awesome, dude. I'll put all the show notes in the show notes, how people to contact you through social media and your website. And then your events. If there's any extra links for your events, if you'll get those to me through email, then we'll put them in the show notes as well.
Awesome, brother.
Thank you for tuning into the One Hand at a Time podcast. Please make sure you like and share the episode. And we'll see you next time here at the One Hand at a Time podcast. Make it a great day.